There's a few things you didn't know about Paddy that I know. We were smugglers on the high sea for years. He also was part of the Mayo Yacht Club, like myself, who were founders of the Mayo Yacht Club in our day. And I also have back pay to get from the medical office in Achill, because I was a training nurse with Paddy for years out in the Badlands at 4 in the morning, when we had to try and keep 5 or 6 men held down while Paddy was stitching up their trousers after coming from a dance in Achill the whole way out to Ballacroy. And he'd say to me, "Nurse, go out and get my coat." And I got strange looks from the fellas that were hanging around the place. So I had to bring in the crowbar to keep them at bay, because I was the only male nurse ever at that time, 40 years back. "Will you come with me to Ballacroy, because we could be killed?" They were the nicest people ever. We did get out alive. One of the other great times that when I met Paddy first, we were friends through hepatitis. Hepatitis. Paddy got hepatitis and I got it. And the only other time I remember our first introduction to smuggling was when we saw a hearse coming down from the Great Southern Hotel, and the gentleman in the front was bearded, and we said, "Oh, this must be someone dead." When we saw the back of the hearse, it has a tricolour over a coffin with guitars and banjos and lobster pots and all sorts of things. It was Paddy's introduction to myself, I think, to pulling lobster pots in Mulranny with the Malloys. It was the Malloy trio. He was an undertaker and a fisherman and everything. But Paddy and I have sailed the high seas. We went into the Cork people down there years ago. We sailed in from England in this big yacht, and we were met by the chieftains of Cork, Chief Donald and Chief Johnny. Johnny was the high priest and the high sheriff, and they had a big castle in Rochestown. It's the only time you have to pay to get out of a castle. They don't know what I'm talking about, but it's a bit of fun. But they were great people. And of course then we were smugglers out of Baltimore. Lord to mercy on Edward. We used to smuggle port then in those days out of the Algiers bar.
Have another bottle.
And have another bottle, sneak it up the coast.
They got one here.
And they were the days. Around the Fastnet Rock, by the way, during the year of the Fastnet. Our association with Paddy goes back about 40 years, and my children, Laura's and my children, and Mairead and Paddy's, were nearly brought up together, I'd say. And Linny Gink with the Linny Gink. Mrs. Lineen would be called Linny Gink, because my son Cian used to be shouting at her for a drink. Linny Gink. And Linny Gink is over here. This is her here with the bottles of lemonade. And of course we sailed an awful lot to the islands. It wasn't unusual for us, myself and Paddy, to sail down under a force 5 into Inishboffin and find that a boat would row across to us and say, "Get me the bag." And he'd get in the boat again and he'd sail across to another yacht. I knew the man who would come over for him, and his wife was sick in the boat. I mean, that was quite normal, and I'd tie up the sails and we'd all meet up in days later. And with Sean, and Sean is down there going through the Fastnet and coming down through the Blaskets at 6 in the morning. I mean, I could go on all day about the wonderful life we've had at the sea. But where this painting, how it comes together, is the wonderful, wonderful innocence, and something we're forgetting in life is the wonderful connection between the husband and wife and children and the marriage. What we are playing down an awful lot today is our wonderful word called marriage. We're throwing it away, and it's not, marriage is not as serious as it should be. What we have in this picture is depicting love and kindness and happiness and warmth, and that's Paddy in the back of his boat there fishing in Clare Island, and these are his daughters here, and Mairead sitting down on the beach, and of course you've Gráinne Wales Castle and old Chris O'Grady's mail boat, and the modern day, the Dave, the big ferry today. And it comes from the heart, my own heart, because it's painting what I think is raw more culture, Changa, and Colorado, and thinking that we're losing in this wonderful little land of ours, the love and the connection between aunts, uncles, and family. The mafia, I think, would be one of the best people to quote when it comes to family, because if you dare stretch out and do anything wrong in the family, you're dead. We're losing that in our country, the love of the connection and the bond between the family. And Nora and myself have been honoured and thrilled to have been connected with the Lineen family for the best part of 40 odd years, and all their friends and their relations that we've had the pleasure, as Johnny said, of meeting all these wonderful people every year. So I want to just say that that's the explanation of the painting here tonight. It's my feeling of love. And if I could just finish by saying what Brendan Gray said about the child at school who was asked by the teacher, "What are you drawing?" And the child said, "I'm drawing God." And the teacher said, "Excuse me, you can't draw God because nobody has seen him." And she looked up at him and said, "But you will when I have finished." Paddy and myself, when we were at sea, you couldn't but have God on board with us all through our lives. We've been touched by God and the Spirit. Okay?
Thanks very much for the kind words.